You may read Shakespeare and have absolutely no idea what anyone is saying. Your eyes pass over the words and you get to the bottom of the page, but you just can't make sense of it. If this is the case, you may be tempted to read a contemporary English version, like the kind they have on SparkNotes, which is totally understandable. If you're really struggling or you've never encountered a Shakespeare play before, those versions can help you get a grasp on the basic events of the story. However, you should know that when you read them, you're not just getting the text in updated form, you're also missing out on a lot of the meaning. I'll show you an example. Juliet kicks off Act 3, Scene 2 of Romeo and Juliet with these lines. "Gallop apace, you fiery-footed steeds, towards Phoebus' lodging. Such a wagoner as Phaeton would whip you to the west and bring in cloudy night immediately." Most people's first reaction to this line is something along the lines of, Phoebus? Phaeton? What? Am I supposed to know what these words mean? SparkNotes interprets this passage as simply, I wish the sun would hurry up and set, and night would come immediately. This is accurate in the sense that Juliet is expressing her desire for the sun to set, because she can't wait to see Romeo that night. The fiery steeds galloping to the west in the original essentially symbolize the setting of the sun. And you might read this interpretation and think it's actually better than what Shakespeare wrote because it's just more efficient. Why say it in 4 lines when you can say it in 2? The problem is, in the contemporary version, you miss the fact that Juliet has just foreshadowed her own death. I know, it sounds a little out there, I understand your skepticism, but allow me to make my case. It all comes down to Phaeton. Phaeton is a fairly obscure figure nowadays. In ancient Greek mythology, he was the son of the sun god Phoebus, which is another name for Apollo. Now, there's some disagreement about who Phaeton's father really was. Some say he was Phoebus/Apollo, others claim he was a separate sun god named Helios. For the purposes of this story, all you need to know is Phoebus was Phaeton's father, and Phoebus was the guy who drove the sun across the sky in a chariot, pulled by horses so wild even Zeus couldn't control them. Phaeton is a demigod, so he has to live on Earth. None of his classmates believe he's the son of Phoebus, so one day he goes up to the Temple of the Sun to confront his dad about it and ask him for proof. To prove that Phaeton is his son, Phoebus says that he will grant him anything he wishes, and he swears this by the river Styx to show how serious he is. Phaeton asks to drive his father's chariot for the day. Phoebus tries to talk him out of it, but it's no use. Phaeton is too enamored with the idea of blazing across the sky in a fiery chariot, so he takes up the reins. To make a long story short, the horses run out of control and set most of the world on fire. Zeus destroys the chariot with a thunderbolt, and Phaeton plummets to his death. So here you have the story of a rash young person who defies his parent and is destroyed in the pursuit of his desire. Sound familiar? Whether Juliet consciously realizes it or not, by invoking Phaeton, she has just predicted her own eerily similar death. This myth adds a destructive and tragic undertone to Juliet's speech that you simply cannot pick up on in the SparkNotes version, which favors readability at the expense of richness. Beyond missing out on the foreshadowing, if you only read the SparkNotes version, you'll have no sense of who Juliet is. Fire, galloping horses, chariots whipping across the sky. These images give us insight into how Juliet is feeling, the quality of her imagination, and the way she expresses herself. I also take issue with the phrasing, I wish the sun would hurry up and set. When I read the original, it seems like Juliet isn't so much wishing as commanding. She isn't an archetypal fair maiden, certainly not timid or passive. She's intense, passionate, and bold, which you'd never be able to tell from the other version. Shakespeare's text is absolutely crammed with nuance and information, which is part of what makes his writing so fantastic. Like I said earlier, the contemporary translations can be a helpful resource in some contexts. Shakespeare's language is so alien to most of us that it truly can feel impenetrable. It's sort of like the first time you drink coffee. Black coffee is initially too strong, so you need to dilute it with milk and sugar to acquire a taste. If you do read a contemporary English version, and you probably will at some point, all I ask is that you don't stop there.